Hey book lovers, it's Natalie with Pippa Pages, and I'm joining you for another book and brew discussion today. Now, I bet you did not expect to see me outside, but I'm sitting on my porch. I have my caffeinated beverage in a wonderful mug that says sweater weather. Let me tell you something about myself if y'all don't know it. Fall is my absolute favorite season. I love everything about it. I love the crisp leaves. I love the crisp air. I love the apple crisp. Everything that's crisp, I love it. So, when it turns September 1st, I am every meme that you have ever seen about those quote unquote basic white girls that love fall. Pumpkin spice everything. I have already had a pumpkin pie blizzard. Of course, I've had my pumpkin spice latte from Starbucks. I have had pumpkin spice Twinkies, pumpkin spice muffins. You name it, pumpkin spice. Pumpkin spice shredded wheat. I've already had that. So, fall is 100% my absolute favorite of all the seasons. And so that got me thinking about fall books that I love to read. There are just some books that scream fall. And for this video, I'm not talking about spooky books. I will do a completely separate video about those because I have a million recommendations on those. I'll try to keep that list pared down. But I wanted to do something that was more like cozy fall reads. Things that have more of a wide appeal. And so I came up with 4 books that I want to talk about today. And these books, some of them, some people may not even associate with fall, but for whatever reason, they're linked with fall in my brain. And regardless of if you think they're a fall book or not, I think that all of these are great reads. And I just want to share that with you as we get ready to settle into all of the burr months and really settle into the fall season. So, and take one more quick little sip of coffee before I get started. So the first book that I have for you all is what I consider the quintessential fall book. You probably have seen the quote that I'm going to use from this book shared on every social media platform. And this book that for me always takes me back to when I was young and fall, when I was a little kid. Because I read this book for the first time when I was in 4th grade. The 8th graders were reading it, but I got to read books that the 8th graders were reading because I was on the advanced reading program or whatever they called it. Maybe it really wasn't a program. Maybe Miss Sparkman was just letting me read more advanced books because I was an advanced reader. So shout out to Miss Mayland Sparkman, wonderful educator. But this book is Anne of Green Gables. This is one of the editions of it that I have, and you can see it's a lovely edition of it, but the story contained in this book is so much more lovely than any cover could possibly convey. And so the quote that I want to read you all out of this, and like I said, I'm sure you've seen it like a million times, is when she's talking about October. Now, I'm fully aware it is not October right now. It is September. September just started. But for me, it's all fall. It's all of the burr months. In November, December technically is still fall because winter doesn't start till January the way it works. So it's all fall. I count it all fall. So this is the beginning of chapter 16 in Anne of Green Gables. And the reason that I think I associate this so much with fall, number one is the quote that I'm going to read to you all, but just so much of this book is connected to descriptions of the land. And I feel like fall, summer, spring, everything is budding out and rebirth and everything's growing again. Summer, everything is thriving, and if you're growing a garden, that's when you're gonna see a lot of growth and development in that. And then fall is when everything returns to the earth, and then it's dormant over the winter. So for me, fall is all about having that connection with the land. I think that's why, like Robert Frost and his poems about apple picking, those are so evocative of fall for me. Not just because that's when you pick apples, but because of that connection with the land. And so I think for me, Anne of Green Gables really is that quintessential fall book because it showcases that connection with the land. And so the quote that I want to read you from this says, October was a beautiful month at Green Gables, when the birches in the hollow turned as golden as sunshine, and the maples behind the orchard were royal crimson, and the wild cherry trees along the lane put on the loveliest shades of dark red and bronzy green, while the fields sunned themselves in aftermaths. Anne reveled in the world of color about her. "Oh, Marilla," she exclaimed one Saturday morning, coming dancing in with her arms full of gorgeous boughs, "I'm so glad I live in a world where there are Octobers." Same, Anne. Same. September, October, November, December. All of them. So glad I live in a world with these months and this season. And so she captures the essence of fall, even in just that one little section that I read to you. So highly, highly, highly recommend this if you have not read it. Now, the second book that I have here is probably not one that a lot of people would connect with fall in particular. However, I do, because again, it's got the connection with the land, and for me, I think that's preeminent in any book that I'm selecting as a fall book. And this one is actually by an Appalachian author. And so this is A Parchment of Leaves by Silas House. Now, if you're not familiar with the works of Silas House, you really, really need to read some of his work, because he is phenomenal. He comes to the Hyman Settlement School, which is very near where I live, if you're not familiar with that area. He comes to the Hyman Settlement School quite frequently, and my copy of Parchment of Leaves is actually signed. I have gotten to meet him on a couple of occasions, so he's a wonderful, wonderful individual in addition to being an awesome writer. And this book is actually part of a trilogy. It's the Crow County trilogy. It chronicles the lives of a family in fictional Crow County, Kentucky. And if you want a true look at the Appalachian experience, I would suggest reading these three books. This one is the more historical of the novels. So, like, the first one, Clay's Quilt, is more modern. And then you take a step back in time with the Coal Tattoo, and then you go even further back, because it's like the generations of the family. And so this one is set in the early 1900s in Kentucky. And the main character is a young Cherokee girl, and her name is Vine. And so, she has just this incredible connection to the land. And again, we see repeatedly in this novel these descriptions of the land. And so the section I'm going to read you right here is, again, beautiful, beautiful prose. And this one specifically focuses on trees. So trees and leaves, huge motifs in Parchment of Leaves, obviously, given the title of it. And the title itself is a reference to a poem by James Steele, another author I highly recommend if you've not read anything by. He's also an Appalachian author. But, okay, I'm going to read you this quote. It says, "I watched the trees swaying. They moved as if they were underwater, so slow and graceful that you wouldn't even notice unless you stopped to watch. The leaves felt thick and seemed full of juice that might taste good if I broke one open. I touched them lightly, afraid I might harm them, and felt of them the way a blind person might read beads of Braille. I wondered if the trees were God. They were like God in many respects. They stood silent, and most people only noticed them when the need arose. Maybe all the secrets to life were written on the surface of leaves, waiting to be translated. If I touched them long enough, I might be given some information that no one else had." So just that connection with the trees, and again the land, really speaks to me as coding this as an autumn book, a fall book. The next book that I have it's technically not a recommendation for one book. It's a recommendation for any books by this author, because I think that you can't talk about fall without talking about mysteries. There's just something about fall that makes me want to read a good mystery. And so, who else would I recommend but Agatha Christie? And so you can see this book that I have right here. This is from one of her many works. This is the Agatha Christie mystery collection, and this is kind of, it's kind of a fancier one. It's got like this really cool cover on the inside. This one in particular is Murder on the Orient Express, which kind of experienced a little bit of a resurgence thanks to the movie version of it that came out not too long ago. But honestly, any Agatha Christie mystery would be a perfect fall read, because you have all of these, not necessarily all the tropes, but I think just anytime there's a mysterious element involved, and these are going to have murder in them, and detectives that are trying to figure out what's going on. This one is Hercule Poirot. I never know if I'm saying that right. I probably butchered it that time too. But he's one of her most famous detectives, in addition to Miss Marple. Now, if you're wanting something that's like super cozy and it's your grandma solving mysteries, pick out one of the Miss Marple mysteries. But this one is one of my absolute favorites. I love situations where the murder takes place in an enclosed space, and that seems to be her forte. So what I mean by that is everybody was in the train when it happened, and so then Poirot has to figure out who done it. Like that's the pseudonym of the whole mystery genre is the whodunit novel. So pick up an Agatha Christie novel. You're going to love it. If you've never read a mystery before, give it a try, because these are really accessible. They're really easy to get into. The characters are very well drawn, and they're just a whole lot of fun. And so it's perfect to, sit on the couch when it's cold, getting colder weather, the sweater weather like I was talking about on my mug. But, snuggling up on the couch with one of these, having your favorite beverage with you, probably wearing a big fuzzy pair of socks, having your big blanket pulled up over you, and a nice cozy mystery there with you as you're reading it. You can't get any better. Cannot get any better. And the last recommendation that I have, now listen, I know this author is kind of controversial at the moment. That's probably an understatement. I'm not going to talk about that. But I purchased this book when it first came out. You'll be able to see based on the wear and tear of this book. So when it first came out in paperback, that's when I purchased this book. And so I cannot think of fall without thinking of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. In fact, the whole Harry Potter series. Say what you will about the author, the series in and of itself is fabulous, and I know that it got so many children into reading. I think I was in college when these started coming out, but I have never been one to turn up my nose at young adult fiction, and so when it came out, actually my friend Travis Cook, who was probably still, he may have been in high school at the time, he suggested that I read these. He's like, they're really good. And so I took his recommendation. I read them, and I have since read the whole series. I cannot tell you how many times I have read the whole series. And it never fails that when the weather starts getting colder, I want to reach for this book from my fantasy shelf that is in my bedroom. For some reason, I want to keep my fantasy books close, and they're on this shelf that my dad built in in my bedroom, and so I have all my Harry Potter books in there. I have Lord of the Rings. I have all my Percy Jackson and Percy Jackson adjacent books, you know, like the Kane Chronicles and stuff. Hunger Games is in there, and of course, Chronicles of Narnia is in there as well. So, but Harry Potter, I think the reason this speaks so much to the fall aesthetic is that, you know, he's going off to school. He's leaving home, heading to this boarding school for witches and wizards, and we automatically start thinking, oh, Halloween, spooky. But it's not like that. It speaks to friendship. It speaks to standing up for yourself, being courageous, finding out who you are, and really growing into the person that you're meant to be. The whole series is, and this is just a fantastic start to the series. So if you don't want to support the author, then I say, you know, go check it out at the library. She's not going to make any money off of it if you check it out at the library. But if you have not read this novel, I still think the novel is worth reading, even if you don't agree with the author of the book. And I could not, in good conscience, have a list of fall books and not include this one whenever it's the one that I personally, other than Anne of Green Gables, you know, Anne of Green Gables is going to always be the first one that I want to reach for, but this one's going to be the second one when it starts getting into the burr months and the weather starts getting a little cooler and the leaves start getting crispy. So those are my 4 recommendations. I could have had a bunch more because there are so many more books that, you know, to me say fall. I mean, for instance, The Hobbit. I don't have my copy of The Hobbit anymore because I lent it out to someone and they never returned it. Is that the way things seem to go? But yeah, for me, The Hobbit also is fall coded. I think just for the fact of the food descriptions and the fact that in fall, you know, what better place would it be than to be snuggled down in a little hobbit hole in the fall? And I know the whole point of the Hobbit is he gets out and he goes on his adventure and he's changed and everything. But, you know, just that image of being snuggled in the little hobbit hole and eating all these different times during the day. Oh my gosh, there's nothing more fall than that. So I could go on and on about fall books, but I don't think you all want to listen to me rattle anymore. So what are your fall book suggestions? Keep the discussion going down below. Let me know. Give me some recommendations. I'm always up to read some more fall books. I think that by now you all have kind of realized that I love fall just a little bit. So, drop your best fall book recommendations below, and I look forward to reading your recommendations, and thank you all for supporting this channel. I'm hoping that it's going to continue to grow, so be sure to like and share the videos, get people to subscribe for me, because the more people that I have following along on this journey, the more content I'm going to be able to bring you, and I sure am loving it already, so I want to be able to continue bringing you all content in this format. So, happy fall, y'all!